Hey everyone, how's it going? This is Azren, the language nerd here, owner of the Calgary Language Nerds, and welcome to today's YouTube video and, of course, podcast episode. Today, I'm continuing my series on Azren's top language learning tips. If you haven't seen the previous episodes in the series, please go to my website. I'll put a link in the description box of this episode, and you can go watch or listen to the other episodes that I have made. Essentially, what I'm doing in this series is I'm taking literally thousands of pieces of language learning advice and pieces of content that I've made on the internet and condensing them, distilling out the most important pieces of advice that I believe I've shared. And so today I would like to tentatively wrap up this entire series on my top language learning tips. I think this is going to be the last episode. Maybe in the future I'll bring it back and I'll think of more tips and more things I would like to add to it. But for the time being, I think today's topic is an excellent place to stop and wrap up the series. And today's tip is to remember to enjoy the process. Enjoy the process. It has to be engaging for you. Listen, if you have watched or listened to all the episodes so far in this series, you watched every single one, there's some likelihood that you are someone who thinks a lot about the language or languages that you're learning. You think about how fluent am I? You think about when will I finally be very fluent? You think about what resources should I use? What methods should I use? You think about why can't I remember words? Oh, why is that sound so hard to say? Oh, it's so frustrating that I'm not able to motivate myself. You're someone who thinks a lot about whatever language or languages that you're trying to learn. And in my experience, when you have someone who thinks a lot is very self-conscious, let's say, self-conscious about the way they're going about learning a language, sometimes the result of that is you stop enjoying the process. It becomes so it's kind of like I can demonstrate this with an example. Think about a computer and you're playing some videos, you've got some music going, you are editing some videos on editing software, you're using the computer's full capacity, and the fans in the computer, the fan is going off and the computer is starting to overheat. While some of you, when you think a lot about well, the language you're learning, and you think quite deeply about how to chart your best path forward, for some people it can become overwhelming and your brain gets overheated in a sense. And so you might burn out, you might keep learning, but you don't enjoy the process. You might feel tired, you might dread learning the language overall. So today I'd like to emphasize the importance of making sure the process is engaging and yeah, make sure it's engaging for you. Now, how do you make the process engaging? That's a good question, no? Well, there are a few things you can do to make the language learning process engaging. I'll give three different things to think about, although there are more than 3 tips. I'll just share 3 because there are lots of things people have done and continue to do, and of course will do in the future, that makes the language meaningfully engaging for that individual. So I'll just give 3 things that I hope at least one of the 3, if not multiple of the 3, are helpful and relevant for you. The first one is it might be helpful for you to have a crystal clear why, meaning why are you learning the language? That might be something that drives you. If you know I'm learning the language for this reason, that might be one source of energy. That might be one source of engagement to the language learning process. So even when you're doing something to learn the language that maybe is less enjoyable than you would prefer, you have a larger why that gives you the energy to do the things, to take the steps required to learn a language that sometimes are not necessarily fun. That might be one place to look. The second source of engagement, the second source of energy when learning a language, is to think about the methods you're using. The methods. How are you learning the language? Not just the why, but the how. Because some people enjoy taking private classes. I'm one of those people. I will take private classes. I will, for example, enjoy learning through music. I enjoy going to language exchange events. I enjoy traveling abroad and living abroad. There are things that I enjoy that make the language learning process very meaningful and very engaging, and ultimately even sometimes very fun for me. Although fun, perhaps it's deeper than just fun. The third thing to think about is knowing precisely what level of fluency you would like to reach. Now, you could quantify this in many ways. You can quantify it in terms of the CEFR, the A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2 levels. If you're learning a language like Japanese, maybe you quantify that with the JLPT. If you're learning Mandarin, maybe you quantify it with the HSK. Different languages have different ways to quantify fluency or proficiency. And so that might be something that's very helpful for you to have quantified exactly where you're trying to go. And again, there's lots of ways to quantify it. Maybe that's something to talk about on another day. But ultimately, those are three places. Maybe all three of them are going to be helpful for you. Maybe just one or two of the three. But again, three things to consider doing to make the language learning process more engaging. 1, know why you're learning a language. 2, pay attention to how you learn it and pick methods that you personally find engaging. And number 3, know precisely what level of proficiency you would like to reach. And ultimately, there's more tips than that. But the main thing I'm trying to say is that it is very important to learn the language in a way that you find overall engaging. That is very important. So that tentatively wraps up this series on Azren's top language learning tips. As I said, I might continue it at a later date, but for the time being, this series is now over. For those of you that watched every single episode or listened to every episode or watched every episode, thank you very much for doing so. I hope you found this very helpful, and I will see you in my next video or my next podcast. See you guys later. Bye-bye.